In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. I'm Emmanuel Rose. Today we have John Corcoran joining us. John is a recovering attorney, accomplished author, and former speechwriter for the Clinton White House. He co-founded Rise 25, a firm dedicated to helping B2B businesses connect with their ideal clients and maximize ROI through podcasting. John has been featured in notable publications such as Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Business Insider, and has interviewed industry leaders across various sectors. His insights from working in Silicon Valley and Hollywood, combined with his extensive experience in B2B marketing, make for a compelling conversation. John, thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Glad to be here.
Well, it's a real treat to have you on my pod because I know you're probably in like about episode 1250 or something for your pod. What's the count right now, John?
I'm kind of lost track, honestly. Yeah.
That's how you know it's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've done it across different podcasts, so I don't know. At some point, I'll try and add them all up. But
it's got to be at least a 1K, right?
It's at least 1,000. I've done well north of 1,000 interviews for sure.
Wow, well that's cool. I wonder just if you could walk me a little bit about what the pre-interview looks like for when you're doing your pods.
Yeah, sure. Well, and let's also talk about it in terms of like what mistakes that people make. So I've been a guest on lots of podcasts, and when you have a busy in-demand guest, first of all, you don't want to take too much time, but you also don't want to take too little time too. And so what I've kind of narrowed in on over the years is trying to take about 6 to 8 minutes. And what I do during that time is I just try and establish a couple of different things that we can focus on. I try and pick out some like tidbits of like some stories that I could use to get the guests comfortable with the format.
Yeah.
And then I launch into it, because if you take too long and you ask the guests about a bunch of different stories, they'll tell those stories on the pre-interview, and then they don't want to tell them during the interview.
Yeah,
I made
right.
this mistake before, I get like this great guest that they tell me some story beforehand, and then I ask them about it during the interview, and subconsciously they're kind of thinking like, I just told this guy this story, so I can't tell it again.
Right.
But of course, it was before you started recording. So I just take a couple of minutes, I ask them a couple of questions around like a couple of different things that I can focus in on with them. I like to ask people about what they were like as a kid, and like, especially if they're an entrepreneur, what sorts of like if they started any businesses when they were like 11 years old. A lot of times people have a story around that, and then I use that to ease into the interview.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I found that it was really easy to talk to you when I was on your pod, and it was obvious you'd done it enough that you were very comfortable with it. So, plus, I think you have a natural emotional intelligence that you've probably cultivated over your entire life.
Well, yeah, and I think doing podcasts also gets you better at that too, around the format.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's probably where it's changed me the most personally, is that I could take the podcast persona of interviewing people and do that in person a lot more easily than I ever have been able to do that in the past.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, doing podcasts can help you in a lot of areas of your life. It can help you to be a better speaker. It can help you to think through some of the different ideas that you have around your industry, some of the unique positions and thought leadership that you can turn into all kinds of other content as well. So you can be a better speaker on stage. It can help you to understand if you're interviewing people that are in your ICP, your ideal clients, then helps you to understand them better and their challenges, their pain points, so that you can speak to them in their own language. So there's so many different benefits beyond just content marketing. A lot of people think of a podcast as just content marketing, but it's so much more than that. It's helping to connect you with your market and with thought leaders in your market and experts in your market. And also you can interview experts outside of your industry as well and
Yep.
gain insights that you can apply inside of your company. And so that could be a big takeaway that you get from the process of doing it.
I agree. The cross pollination industry wise is really cool. Well, I love the work that you're doing, John, because you have taken two of what I think are the biggest secrets in B2B marketing, and you've productized them. One is prospecting by interview, right? Which you have your own terminology for, but that's what I call it. And then also working this system of this Chet Holmes kind of philosophy of the biggest influencers that you can meet for your business and for connecting you to other businesses. So I'd really like to dig in on that a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about your view of the podcast and how you're taking clients through the podcast process in order to prospect.
Yeah. So I think of the podcast as, yes, it absolutely is a tool that you can use to interview your prospects. But if you take that too far, then I think people they'll sniff it out. They can kind of tell that that's the reason that you're doing it.
Yep.
So I don't think that you should do it solely for that reason. Plus, if you're only interviewing prospects, you're missing out on a lot of the value of doing the podcast. For example, a current client is not a prospect. A current client could have spent millions of dollars in your business over the last 5-10 years. And what do you think they would think if they see you doing these podcasts, interviewing all these other people, and they're thinking, I've spent a lot of money on him. Why isn't he interviewing me? Why am I not being asked to be on the podcast? Right.
Yep.
So there's a lot of other ways to use it beyond just prospecting. But you're right. Absolutely. It is definitely a great tool for prospecting. But, you could use it to interview referral partners, strategic partners. You can use it to interview thought leaders in your industry, authors, speakers. If there's a big industry conference that you go to every year, go interview the organizers of that, interview the people who are on the board of that, interview the speakers every year, so that when you go to that industry conference and you show up, you actually know a bunch of the people, the big players, the keynote, the sponsors,
Yep.
and you're also delivering value to the industry conference that has been instrumental in your growth. So there's so many different ways to do it. And so I say it's really like a Swiss Army knife. It's a tool that can do many different things. And so a lot of people, they kind of gain this insight that, a podcast is a marketing tool, full stop. That's all that they think it is. And they're missing out on all these other ways that you can benefit it, that you can use it to benefit you.
Yeah, the strategic part of it, right? It is so multidimensional. I guess, what do you say to prospects or people that you're talking to where maybe they're shy or they're uncomfortable being on camera or talking? Because I still have some clients that don't want to have interviews, right?
Yeah.
Because they want it to be perfect. So,
Right.
what do you say to those people?
Well, I mean, I say that I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I'm a recovering lawyer. So I was an attorney for many years. And what do you pay a lawyer for? You pay them to cross the T's and dot your I's, to make sure everything is perfect. So I thought that if I applied the same standard of perfection that I did to my client work to the podcast, that it would be successful. That was not the case.
Right.
In fact, you actually have to lower that standard of perfection. You have to be okay with the imperfect. Because if you fixate too much on this perfectionist tendency, you'll never put anything out there. So you have to be a little bit okay with that. And also just realize that there's a massive amount of content out there. And it's not like every client of yours, every friend, every peer, every person you went to high school with is going to be checking out this episode, and you'll also get better at it over time. So when you get started, that's probably the worst you'll ever be, so over time you'll get better at it, and you have to do these things to get better. It's just like any other discipline. It's just like getting fit or I don't know, building a house or anything, or building, a better relationship with people that are important to you in your life, you will be rusty. You will not be good at it in the beginning, and you'll get better over time. But just because you're not going to be as good at it in the beginning as you will be 5-10 years later doesn't mean that's not a reason to never do it, because then you're just surrendering and you're giving up on it.
Do you think that there are businesses or sectors that would not benefit from having a podcast?
I'm sure there are. For example, we don't work with B2C businesses. So if you're selling a $5 widget, a podcast could benefit you, but it's going to take so long that it probably is not worth your time. We really focus on B2B businesses that have a high client lifetime value, because we know if a client is worth $100,000 to them or $200,000 or whatever it is, if they just focus on having great conversations with their current client base, with prospects, with referral partners, that they are far more likely to get ROI from it. And then when they get ROI from it, then they're far more likely to keep on doing it. And that's where you really reap the benefits from it, is when you do it consistently over time. Eventually you realize, oh, this is actually saving me time. This is actually a life hack. Instead of having to get on a plane to fly across the country to go to a conference to network with people for 72 hours once a year, I can do this anytime in between client appointments. I can do it on the road. I can do it from a hotel room. I can do it from my home office. I can do it wherever.
Yeah.
And I can use it consistently over time. And so it's really kind of a battle, because you have to push people to try and get ROI from it. And things like perfectionist tendencies, things like imposter syndrome, those are the enemy of getting you to ROI.
Yeah.
And you have to get past those things so that you can see that, okay, if I do this thing consistently over time, if I don't obsess over it needing to be perfect, if I just do the reps, I will get clients from it. Or I will get clients that are good clients who will double down, who will add another service from me, who will have a stronger relationship with me, who will refer some of their people in their network to me. And then when you see those results, when you see actual clients, when you see actually money showing up in your bank account, then people are far more motivated to keep on going. So then they can reap the real benefits from it.
Yeah, no, we're aligned on that. I think it is so multidimensional, and your content marketing issue is solved immediately from the very first episode, and it is a lot of the processes can be automated. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So now there's some parts that you want to be hands-on, and then there's some things that can be automated. Where have you found in the podcasting sequence? Where have you picked to do both of those things?
Yeah, well, the part I wouldn't automate is the human to human connection piece.
Right.
And there's going to be more and more AI tools out there that will make it appear as if two humans are talking to one another. And if that's your goal, good luck. That's completely different from what I recommend people do.
Yeah.
For me, it's about having a genuine human connection, an excuse to have a conversation with someone in our busy world, which a lot of times we're so busy that we don't take the time to do these things.
Yeah.
And so it's an excuse for that. Where you can use AI software, where you can use automation, is preparing you in advance, doing your research beforehand so you can speed up your research process so that you're prepared, about the person's background, preparing questions for you in advance.
Yep.
Then you do the actual interview, you actually have the conversation. And then afterwards, if someone's watching this 6 months from now, there's going to be more tools. 12 months from now, there are going to be even more tools. So there's a million different things you can do with the episode afterwards, from promoting it to, creating show notes to, turning it into even books. I mean, behind me, I've got a couple of books here that have been created that came from a podcast. This
Nice.
is the Michael E. Gerber E-Myth Revisited, which is a classic business book. It has a bunch of spin-off books, and this is one of those spin-off books, which originated from a podcast interview, a podcast that we started for a client of ours, Austin Clark. And so my point is just that you can take a podcast interview and you can turn it into a million different things.
Yep.
But the other thing that I will caution people is that if you try and do all those things at once when you're just getting off the ground, it's far more likely to torpedo the entire initiative. because it's going to be too much complexity. And if you don't just focus on the basic fundamentals, then you'll never keep on going because there's just going to be too much to deal with. So I do caution people to try not to do too much in terms of marketing, like take a little bit more of a slow approach to that. And then you can always layer in additional things later.
Yeah, and I'll support the automating the part from calendaring and research and appointments. All those things are great. I got the summary with the bio you provided, the one we wrote, the first 6 questions, and all that's attached to my calendar event. So that way it's all self-contained, and that's all happened magically by the power of make.com in advance.
Yeah.
And then we take the video and we push it through a tool called Fluent Frame, which then creates the show notes and the YouTube description and blog post and email and social posts. I go through and human in the loop that, make sure that it's on brand, on voice, and then it gets shipped off to Canva and gets assets created from it. It's a very tidy process. Something that used to take 4 to 6 hours is now 30 minutes or less.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say to people is, look, reach out to someone like Emmanuel and get support on this, because I've seen people that will. It's a form of procrastination to investigate how many different tools there are and how much
Right.
can you automate this stuff, and can I create this big process around it? And next thing you know, they haven't reached out and invited their biggest clients to come have a conversation with them, because it's basically a procrastination, and so sometimes you have to know yourself too, because sometimes that is the thing that people are the worst at, is just reaching out to your client base and inviting them onto a podcast. We've had clients that they like talking to a microphone, they like being interviewed. They'll do that all day long,
right,
if we let them, but that's not what's most important or most valuable for them. We know this. And so we're basically like kind of pushing them, trying to get them to go reach out to their client base to invite them to be a guest on the podcast, because we know that conversation is far more important for them. So be wary of that. Be careful about that, because you can just procrastinate yourself and you won't get any ROI that way.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm a big believer in ready, fire, aim, right? And just getting it, making sure that you're working in iterative spaces versus perfected spaces.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, talk to me a little bit about the Dream 200 and what that looks like from you guys.
This is a process that we created, and you mentioned Chet Holmes earlier, wrote a book called Dream 100, kind of coined that term. Others have used that term, but he's kind of credited with having created it. And the concept, the idea is just the biggest, prospects, clients, referral partners, strategic partners, centers of influence, authority figures in your industry, and taking the time to put that list together. And so that's our first step. So when we work with a client, our first step is not, let's spend 15 hours together researching what microphone you should buy. Let's spend 15 hours together deciding on what the title of your podcast is. Let's spend 20 hours talking about the branding and all that kind of stuff. All those things are varying levels of importance depending on your business. I think sometimes creative agencies tend to over optimize on those pieces, worrying too much about the brand identity. And then they put 12 episodes out and they quit because again, they haven't spent the time on the things that are most important to moving the needle. So for us, it's first, the most important thing is who are on your Dream 200, who are those people that you should really spend the next year to 2 years reaching out to and interviewing on your podcast. And a lot of people would much rather reach out to cold prospects than people that they are already know, like, and trust them, or people that have already spent a lot of money on their service, on their company. And those are more important, frankly. Those are far more likely to lead to ROI for you. And so most important thing that we do first with our process is to put those names down on paper of those companies, of those individuals. And then that's your roadmap of the people who the next year to 2 you should be reaching out to and inviting to get involved in your podcast. And by the way, it doesn't have to be just inviting them onto the podcast. It could also be involving them in other ways. Some of our most successful clients are reaching out to their client list to involve them, to tell them that they're launching the podcast, to ask for name suggestions, to ask for guest suggestions. Who else in your network do you know that I should be interviewing? Or who else in this industry do you think that I should be interviewing? And just doing that involves them in the process. And of course, also inviting people on that list to be a guest on the podcast as well. So that's what we do, is start with that process first.
I think that's it's brilliant and good work of figuring that out as the hub.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of especially B2B businesses don't work on that concept. So it's a cool thing to see you putting that into action.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what do you got planned? What's new for 2026 for you guys at Rise?
I think as AI speeds up what we all can do and what small teams can do, I think that a podcast will continue to be important. But I also think that we are going to all we must generate more marketing in order to compete, because our competitors will do it. And so I used to kind of hate when people said you need to be everywhere, you need to do marketing absolutely right,
Right.
and my thing was, you should really just focus on a channel and double down on that channel and do find a channel that works. I still think that's true, but I also think that it's possible now for you to leverage AI with a small team and to get a lot more accomplished. And now I do firmly believe that if you start with a podcast, that's a great home base.
Sure.
Because you're having conversation with a client or a referral partner. That in itself is valuable. Then you create a recording, whether it's video and audio or both.
Yep.
And then that can be turned into a million different things, from email newsletters to digital snippets that you share on social channels online, to books, as I mentioned, to all kinds of different things. So I still think that is an important place to start. And I do believe that you can then, in the years ahead, we're just going to need to become even bigger content machines, and use that content to create lots of different assets online, these little breadcrumbs that then bring people back to us, to our services, to our company.
Well, yeah, I agree. And I think the critical part you mentioned earlier, which is what's your ICP, right? And so that we're creating these breadcrumbs for each ideal client profile. And then at least we have some structure around being everywhere, right? For these specific messages to these specific people.
Exactly.
Educate themselves.
Yeah. And a lot of people they're not clear on that, as I'm sure you know, right? Yeah. A lot of people are not clear on who their ICP is. It's anyone who has a wallet, right? That's not an ICP. So you have to get clear on that. Frankly, like, what better way to get clear on that than to have a tool that you can use to get into conversation with people who you think are your ICP,
right?
And we've had many clients that have gone down a path of, I'm going to, this is my ICP, I'm going to interview them. And then they get 10 or 20 conversations in, and they're like, this is not who I want. I don't want these people anymore. Right. I don't like them, or whatever, right?
Right.
Great. That's helpful to know, because now you can move on. Like, okay, well, I'm going to move on to someone else and focus on that. So, yeah, I think that, I'm super excited about AI. I think that it's interesting, because I was just reading over the weekend that right now, as we record this in December of 2025, AI actually has a really low reputation, especially among workers.
Yeah.
Very negative reputation. So that's danger zone, because either you've got workers who will rebel against it, who are not going to want to integrate it, which is not helpful for any company. The other danger is that it could get regulated, and that some of its utility, just out of fear, will go away. And I think that's a problem. But I don't have a magic wand, so I can't predict what we can do in order to transition this society over from where we are today to a society where AIs are everywhere. It's coming at us fast and furious, just like everyone said for the last couple of years. And I just don't think that we can stick our head in the sand. I think that it's going to be something that we need to understand and utilize. Now, I'm a glasses half full kind of person. So I do firmly believe that every time a new technology has come along, it's created more opportunities for us, and it's created new jobs, new job categories. And so I think that kind of stuff will happen, but there may be a bit of a lag behind it. And that's the danger zone that we're going to be in.
Yeah, it is interesting that the change management portion of this is really kind of, I think, where the lag is happening, right? Is the humans adoption. Right. And like you're saying, is the mass market has kind of gotten fed a lot of this fear. Even though guys like you and I know that it's 10x levered what we're capable of doing, and is in some ways a magic wand. For the content creation. And
come to think of it, I right before this interview, I just got off a call. I'm organizing a panel on AEO, or AI engine optimization. And I was just talking to this woman who works for an agency, and she is an AEO operator. Like she does AEO, which is basically helping companies to get found in the LLMs and ChatGPT and Gemini and stuff like that. That is a job that didn't exist 6 months ago, 12 months ago, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be lots of examples like that where new industries, new careers start to emerge that didn't exist before, that are iterative improvements or versions of previous jobs that previously existed. And so there's going to be a lot more like that, but there could be a bit of a lag where we don't really understand where the job market is going. And that's going to be dangerous for people that feel threatened by this new technology coming along.
Yeah, my message to those people is spend some time every day learning about AI and how you can participate in it versus being afraid of it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, John, I'm really thankful for your time, and I appreciate your insights. If people want to have a conversation with you, how do they track you down?
Yeah, rise25.com or john@rise25.com. You can reach me there. I'm on LinkedIn, John Corcoran. Feel free to reach out. Happy to chat with people.
All right. Well, I'm super happy that I got to see you, and we got to look at each other in the eye, even if it is over video. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon, John.
Sounds great. Thanks, Emmanuel.
Okay. Thank you. Well, it's a great reminder that the podcast is a multidimensional activity. If you don't have one yet, you should go and check out Rise 25 and have a conversation with John. I hope you got value from my conversation with John Corcoran today. I also hope that you take some time to investigate a new tool or go to ChatGPT and spend some time thinking with the support of that AI. And I hope that you are able to leverage it and get back some time from your work week. And with that time, you continue to upskill, that you spend that time with your friends and family, or that you get outside into nature and get away from the screens. This is Emmanuel Rose, Marketing in the Age of AI.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.